A former New Jersey teacher could soon face jail time after being arrested for alleged sexual misconduct with an 18-year-old student. But you know what? These allegations are not the first controversy the Monmouth County School District has faced in recent years. The question we ask is, what is going on? Well, we're going to break it down with board-certified psychiatrist Dr. Zeev Cohen. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. One New Jersey County School District is no stranger to scandal, from minor issues which face backlash, like banning homeschool kids within the district from joining clubs and sports, to several major problems, including locker room hazing. These incidents which led to students being criminally charged, and perhaps the most serious of them all, multiple teachers arrested accused of sexual relationships with students. And most recently, we're going to talk about 36-year-old married teacher Julie Rizzitello. Now, Rizzitello resigned from her teaching position at Wall High School just days before her arrest on July 3rd, 2024, for allegedly engaging in sex acts with a student several times earlier this year. This is according to the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office. Rizzitello of Brick Township is charged with 2 counts of second-degree sexual assault, 3 counts of criminal sexual contact, and witness tampering. An investigation into the allegations revealed the alleged misconduct with the student started earlier this year and happened on multiple occasions within at least 3 different jurisdictions, Wall and Brick Townships and the borough of Belmar, between April and June. Now, it's alleged that Rizzitello had sexually assaulted this student multiple times, including in his own car, and authorities also say that Rizzitello sent the student nude photos. Now, prior to her resignation, the 36-year-old teacher taught 9th grade English and SAT prep at Wall High. This is according to her now deleted online school profile. She's been with the Wall Township Public School District since 2013. She was married in 2017 to her husband, Joseph. Now, here's something that's interesting. This teen was 18 years old when this happened. And you might be asking yourself, well, wait a second, if he's 18, how is that illegal? Well, it is important to note that in New Jersey, there was a relatively new law that was signed in 2019, and it makes it illegal for a teacher or other school faculty member to have sex with students over the age of 18. And the idea would be that there really can't be consent when you have that student-teacher relationship. There's a level of power, there's a level of control, there's a level of influence. So for instance, under the law, second-degree sex crimes against students are punishable by a prison term of 5 to 10 years. Now, in response to the arrest, a letter was sent out to parents from the school superintendent. And it said in part, quote, "We were advised by the Wall Township PD that former Wall High School teacher Miss Julianne Rizzitello was criminally charged. The Wall Township Public Schools Administration and Board of Ed are fully cooperating." It goes on to state, "Please understand there is an evolving police investigation. District officials are unable to provide details or information beyond that of publicly released information from LE." The now former teacher is being held in the Monmouth County Jail in Freehold Township, awaiting a detention hearing this week in Monmouth County Superior Court. And the crazy part of all this, aside from what I just laid out, is that she is now the second teacher within that area to be arrested in just a week, because we have 43-year-old Allison Haveman Needrack, a special education teacher at Freehold Intermediate School, which houses 6th through 8th grade and is also in Monmouth County. She was arrested in late June 2024. She is charged with first-degree aggravated sexual assault and second-degree child endangerment. By the way, there's also been several other issues within this district in recent years. In 2022, at least 6 members of the Wall High School football team were charged after video clips of alleged hazing incidents surfaced. According to local media, 6 older players swarmed and attempted to pin down a younger player in the locker room, with one of the players holding a broomstick. Several school employees were placed on leave in connection with the allegations. And this came, by the way, just 2 months after Governor Phil Murphy signed an anti-hazing law. All 6 students have since pleaded guilty to lesser charges in order to avoid jail time. And all this comes amid more than 20 arrests of teachers and school staff across New Jersey accused of sexual misconduct involving students within the last year. What is going on? So to talk about this, I want to bring back in board-certified psychiatrist Dr. Zeev Cohen. Dr. Cohen, good to see you. I mean, again, I just saw you recently because we were talking about a case very similar to this. I have to ask, we talk about the number of arrests. Let's just focus on what I last brought up. I asked
Sure.
you the last time we were here if this is just more prevalent that we're seeing this today for some reason, or if it's just easier to detect and to catch these people. What do you think?
So, it's hard to say for sure because we don't have really good data going back several decades to know exactly what the rates are of sexual abuse of students, high school students, middle school students, and especially we don't have good data to measure that with regard to female perpetrators. Traditionally, we think of male perpetrators and we think of pedophiles. And these types of crimes are really different than that paradigm of the male pedophile perpetrator, because we're typically seeing in these types of sexual abuse, we tend to see younger women. So that means women from their mid-20s to their mid-30s. There can be outliers for certain, but generally we're seeing women from their mid-20s to their mid-30s who are having sexual relationships, usually with adolescent males, so boys who are 15 and up. And now, again, there are exceptions. There are younger boys who are being abused, but usually it's the younger female teachers with younger adolescent boys. And this is a different typology for sexual abuse in an organizational setting. And we don't have very good data looking back several decades, but it does appear to be increasing at an alarming rate. We do see more and more of these crimes being prosecuted, coming to public attention. And often we do see that there's a component of cell phone use and social media use that is involved and that may be kind of a catalyst for this type of sexual abuse, sending nude photos, text messaging with students. There's a erosion of boundaries.
Hey there, everybody. This episode of Sidebar is sponsored by Truthfinder, and it makes sense since we cover a lot of stories where we ask, how well do we really know the people in our lives? Well, Truthfinder is a service that can maybe provide you some answers because it's one of the largest public record search services in the United States. You go on their website, truthfinder.com, you type in a name, and within minutes and a paid subscription purchase, you can access unlimited reports that can include information like phone numbers, location history, criminal and traffic records, including possible arrests, criminal convictions. Also, if you type in an address, it shows you registered sex offenders that may live in that area, which is just honestly kind of wild to see. So whether it's researching new dates or friends or reconnecting with people, Truthfinder is a great tool. And right now, you can get 50% off of your first month of confidential background reports if you go to truthfinder.com/LC Sidebar. By the way, to be clear, out of the number of arrests that we're seeing in New Jersey, they're not all female, they're male too. I just think it's so alarming that we're seeing this. And I always go back to the question of why. Why typically are some reasons you see adults engaging in sexual relations with minors or even 18-year-olds, 18 to 22, younger people, they're students, while they're in this position of authority. And a lot of times they're married or in relationships. They have lives.
Absolutely. Well, so in terms of the rates, estimates vary depending on where you look, which jurisdiction or geographical area you're studying. There also have been interesting studies out of the United Kingdom, which we can try to apply to our country, even though there are cultural differences between the two countries. So the rate of this type of abuse, where you have a female teacher or a female person in authority in an organizational setting with children, appears to be about 10 to 25% of sexual abuse are in an organizational setting seem to be the females perpetrating. So it is majority male perpetrators, but that's, I think, a much higher number than most people would have imagined. To think that up to a quarter of perpetrators in an organizational setting are actually female and are abusing boys. In terms of the cause, so, the causes vary whether we're talking about male or female perpetrators. When we're talking about female perpetrators, we really see a few types of typologies. One is we see what we would think of as immaturity. So we have immature women. We have women who may be just a few years out of college. They're in their first teaching role. again, they're not very mature. They're not good at creating boundaries, being professional with the students. In their own mind, they don't have a clear differentiation between themselves and the students. They think of themselves as quite young. And so the blurring of the boundaries can lead to infatuation or sexual involvement with adolescent boys. But you also see women who are going through some kind of a mental health crisis. That may be something that's diagnosable, like a depression, but it also could just be, the stresses of adulthood. So they're in a career that's often challenging. Being a teacher is not easy. There's lots of stress involved, pressure, deadlines, responsibilities. These folks may be feeling isolated. Their personal life might not be very rewarding. They may even be married, but they may feel lonely or isolated in their marriage because she and her spouse are working all the time or busy with the kids. And so the fantasy, it begins as fantasy, and flirtation with this adolescent boy is kind of an escape from that, an escape from the normal pressures of adulthood. So we think of those women as being loneliness and having an infatuation as being a big part of what drives them. Then you have women who have more pathological fantasies, I would say. So you have women who really have a savior syndrome. So they begin to rationalize that they're helping this adolescent boy by having a sexual relationship with him, that it's part of the mentoring. And that is a kind of thought process that's much more similar to male sexual abusers, where there's a rationalization and a self-justification for actually abusing the minor. So we see a range of typologies in these women.
And I have to tell you, I'm always amazed at, and you talked about a little bit how brazen it is, right? So talking about Rizzitello, 36 years old, 18-year-old alleged victim, multiple times having sexual relations, that's the allegation, different areas, allegedly sending him nude photos, lots of sexual communications between the two. Yes, these are allegations, but I always find it so disturbing how brazen this is, and really no hiding. Now, again, she did allegedly tell the teen to delete photos and communications, and apparently he had told friends who confirmed with police that he told them about this relationship. So there does become a question of how much this was supposed to be kept secret or not. But Dr. Cohn, I want you to break something down for me. Investigators, they interviewed this teen about the relationship that was going on, excuse me, for months. What do you think that conversation is like when you have that? Is it a forensic interview? Is that the way to best describe it with somebody who's in that position?
Sure, I would definitely consider it a forensic evaluation. So, police investigators are going to try to gather facts. You could certainly have a psychologist or a psychiatrist with forensic training also evaluate a victim like this to try to understand what their mindset was, to what degree they were manipulated or coerced, to what degree there was trauma and psychological abuse that were going on. So I think that there's a role even for expert psychological or psychiatric evaluation. But I think what you're often going to see in someone in this situation is there may be some minimization, some evasion, trying to protect the abuser. We see that very commonly in episodes of sexual abuse. And so often investigators have to come to this type of evaluation with a good deal of skepticism and patience to patiently and methodically interview the victim, challenge inconsistencies, challenge implausibilities. They may present a very simple narrative of how the sexual involvement came about that may, minimize things like grooming that are very important in understanding the behavior of the perpetrator. So I think that the evaluation will be very interesting. It'll be very interesting to speak to the victim. In terms of the brazenness, I would add that one thing that we do see with female abusers is that they tend to pick one victim. Again, female abusers in an organizational setting, like female teachers, they tend to pick one victim and they tend to kind of stick to that victim. And the relationship tends to be long. And sometimes the relationship will even continue after they've been prosecuted. and we've seen that in a number of prominent cases, where, even after having, been punished or served a prison or probation sentence, the female teacher has established an adult relationship now with the former child victim. And so that's something that is very interesting and relatively unique in this type of female abuser with an adolescent boy.
And I'll just add to it, sometimes these victims, they don't realize the extent of the damage that this does, this causes until years later. They don't recognize what the effect is until years later, and it can be incredibly devastating. We cover it all the time about the effect of them having relationships in the future, how they perceive themselves, or just the pain of what has happened. And there's clearly that, doctor, about what this this teen is going to have to go through. But then, are you concerned at all about the other students in this school district? I had mentioned everything that else is going on, right? I mentioned that we have this, we have another teacher in the area who's accused of very similar allegations. We have the hazing incident. When I was reading about this, I thought, I hope there's certain services being provided to the students because there is a lot going on there.
Absolutely. So I am worried about the other students in the school district. And frankly, I'm also worried about the other teachers in the school district. Mm-hmm. And I think that when something like this happens, when it comes to attention, it's a canary in the coal mine. It's suggesting that there may be a host of problems and that the administration needs to take this really head on with a lot of education and intervention and discussion in the school community. So what am I kind of thinking of? Well, I'm thinking of, for example, the students. So it worries me, is there a pattern here? You have two teachers in the same school district, I think within a couple of weeks of each other being apprehended. It worries me that there are not good boundaries between teachers and students in this school district. So, we need to have more education of the students and the teachers about exchanging cell phone numbers or social media, exchanging pictures. These things should not be occurring. Students and teachers can communicate through the professional email account of the school. They should not be texting each other. They should not have each other's cell phones. What is the behavior like in the classroom? So, how are teachers, especially younger teachers, relating to the students? Are they sort of fraternizing too much? Are they seeing themselves as friends rather than as being in a position of authority? So it does make me worry, and it makes me worry that there's some kind of a contagion that's going on here, that there's something in the culture of the school district. I also want to add something, which is a broader comment, which is about the sexualization of children. So I think many observers have noted in the last 20, 25 years how adolescents have become more and more sexualized, even going into middle school. If you look at the way kids are dressing, for example, and I think that I wonder whether kids taking on a more sexualized persona when they're actually psychologically immature and not ready for it is also leading potential predators to view them as an appropriate sexual object. So I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen in schools when this type of incident occurs.
Dr. Cohen, that is a great point. And, I think that fully encompasses a lot of the stories that we cover. And I wonder if people look at this and say, it seems so unbelievable. It seems unimaginable that things like this happen. But if you watch us here on Sidebar, you see clearly this happens. And it's important to put a spotlight on this kind of abuse or this alleged abuse because hopefully it can be stopped. And I think you've raised a number of great points, but unfortunately, as much as I love talking to you, I have a feeling I'm going to have you back on because this is probably not the last that we see of this. So Dr. Zeev Cohen, thank you so much for coming on. Again, great perspective, great analysis, and hopefully we can take some tips that you laid out, and maybe we need a change, not only in that school district, but across society. So Dr. Cohen, thank you so much.
Great to be here.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.